Good evening and welcome to Mountain Bears. I'm Aeson and of course I'm sitting down with Techie with the mostest, Cubby of the mostest. Techie Joe, how are you, honey?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Having fun as normal.
Awesome.
Had a great shift. Popping over here. There's a lot of however going on with food. I mean, we had that warning about, I keep calling lavers, lesser and something another,
Listeria.
listeria. And now McDonald's is trying to kill the Midwest with E. coli. What is going on with their food?
All right. So we've got the Guardian with what is E. coli and how can you prevent yourself from becoming infected by it? There is an outbreak of the disease that has been linked to McDonald's burgers, and they have a here's what you need to know. So, health authorities are investigating an outbreak of E. coli infections linked to McDonald's quarter pounder cheeseburgers in 12 states in the U.S. Midwest and Mountain West. At least 75 people have been sickened, 22 people hospitalized, and one died. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, while the investigation is ongoing, here's what authorities currently know about how people might have been sickened and what to do about it. So the cause of the outbreak is not known, but a McDonald's quarter pounder has two ingredients that are most likely to make people sick: a fresh beef patty and fresh onions. Meat can carry foodborne illnesses when it's contaminated during processing or when it comes into contact with contaminated equipment like a meat grinder. Ground beef is especially susceptible to this kind of contamination because bacteria are distributed throughout the meat, not just on the surface. That makes it more difficult to destroy the bacteria during cooking. Fresh sliced onions are also a potential culprit in this outbreak because, unlike beef patties, which are typically cooked, sliced onions are served raw. That means there is no cooking chance to kill the bacteria with heat. The quarter pounder burger item on a McDonald's menu is served with raw onion. Fresh vegetables have been to blame in several recent E. coli outbreaks. For instance, an FDA report found cattle grazing near fields of lettuce in California's Salinas Valley probably caused 3 E. coli outbreaks in 2019. An irrigation canal in Yuma, Arizona that linked a feedlot with tens of thousands of animals to a romaine lettuce field probably caused a different outbreak in 2018. At the time, it was the largest outbreak in a decade. So the U.S. Department of Agriculture has already said that fresh onions are probably the cause of the McDonald's outbreak, even as the CDC continues to investigate. The source of the onions, Taylor Farms, has contacted stores that carry its produce to notify them of a recall. Taylor is one of the largest food service suppliers in the country. So fundamentally, and I'm going to stop there because that's
Right.
goes on to how do I know if I have E. coli and all that.
Right.
But to actually answer the question, and it's a large part that we don't really consider our food and how that food on our supermarket shelves, which is technically in the history of human food consumption,
Mm-hmm.
a relatively new thing, only being roughly 50 some years old. Well, no, excuse me, 70 some years old.
Mm-hmm.
You could push it out to 80 some years old. It was a post war invention, the supermarket.
Right.
Before that, we were still mostly reliant on a more local food system.
Mm-hmm.
That we were working with a dry grocer, like dry goods, canned goods, all the things you could mass produce and push out into a marketplace that people expected. Then we were working more locally with a local baker, a local butcher, a local farmers for produce. The supermarket kind of took all that and kind of Walmarted it,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense, in this idea of like you just go to one place and get all your crap.
Right.
As we evolved through that and kind of made that more and more possible, it meant that we kind of condensed down what we were doing and where we were getting everything from. So we ended up with a handful of companies that were selling like 90% of our food, or supplying it, more importantly, which is basically what Taylor Farms is a food supplier. And then that broke down and went through, it broke down a little bit and then basically became part of large distribution chains.
Right.
So fundamentally what's happened is we're now very, very reliant on a very, very few number of businesses and their processing plants and equipment to provide the majority of what we eat.
Right.
So tiny problems, or what would have been like local, very regionalized problems 80, 90, 100 years ago, are now very massive, large-scale events.
Yes, and spread much more so. I mean, just like this is at just McDonald's. The other one affected everything.
Actually, that's kind of where Taylor Farms comes in, with the U.S. Department of Agriculture saying it's most likely the fresh onions, even though the CDC is like, we don't know.
Right.
And links back to Taylor Farms, and there's a potential it's not just going to be McDonald's.
Right.
It's potentially anywhere that Taylor Farms supplies, and they're already jumping out in front of this, going, just pull our vegetables.
Right.
So what may be happening throughout the Midwest and Mountain West, as the article like to call it, is you may see a lot of different vegetables unavailable. You may also see those stores heavily sanitizing their entire produce section, because they've had to pull mass quantities. This may not only be fresh, like your normal traditional, like here's your produce stand, fresh vegetables. This may also bleed into everything else on the shelf, like salads that have onions in them, multiple pre-cut items. And then you may see it in the frozen section as well. And so you may have this whole moment where you're standing in the middle of the store going, I just need onions.
Yeah.
There's no bin of onions. There's no diced onions. There's no frozen onions. What the hell? And the reality is that all of this could come from this one company.
Right.
So you suddenly see the swap.
Right.
Yeah. And it could be multiple vegetables that this applies to as well.
Right.
It's just McDonald's receives onions.
Right. And it could spread to lettuce, pre-made salad mixes, because I know Taylor Farms does a wonderful salad. We've bought those before. It's going to be interesting to see what all falls out.
Right. And that's also kind of a key important item to talk about real quick. Especially when you're talking about handling produce to put it on the shelf.
Right.
Because if you're touching onions, depending upon the order, things get taken out of their shipping containers and placed on the shelf. You also have these workers who I hope are wearing gloves.
Right.
But may not be changing them between the onions they just stocked that are potentially covered in E. coli and then all the other vegetables they're setting out. Exactly. So again, you may run into issues where like the lettuce isn't a problem, except they stocked the lettuce after the onions.
Right.
So what do we do about the lettuce? Do we assume it's contaminated because we handled it after the onions?
Right.
And at some point, it's almost going to become is it too little, too late?
Well, what gets me and what's aggravated me a little bit more is I sent you to the grocery store. You came home with a mile-long receipt.
Oh, yes. So going back to the listeria. Yeah. Going back to the listeria item or listeria issue,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I bought like 2-3 items. Like it was, my purchase section was like 1.25 inches.
Mm-hmm.
Like the normal receipt was maybe 2.5 inches. Like that's what should have spewed out.
Right.
And then of course the little you saved, and you have
Yeah.
fuel points, but no, instead it just like I got the alert on the self-checkout screen.
Mm-hmm.
Because it like locked up the machine and like took over and was like, please check your receipt for an important message. Okay, so I'm looking, and then this receipt spews out of the printer.
Right.
Where it starts telling me, which don't get me wrong, I do appreciate.
Right.
I do appreciate, like, there's a part of me that really appreciates the fact that in using our, Kroger card, because we were at Kroger,
right,
or I was, that in using our Kroger card, it's cross-linking our past purchases for this information.
Right.
Which I really do appreciate. At the same time, unfortunately, like 2 things happen. One is a lot of families, much like we have, are kind of buying, sort of day-to-day week, like buy for the day, buy for the week, or some minor interval.
Right.
We're not necessarily going and like bulk purchasing quite as much as we used to.
Right.
And the little bit of a bulk purchase that we did with this was on frozen meals that we took home and pretty much immediately consumed.
Yeah, like they were all
like as it went through the week.
Right.
So by the time this occurs, I'm basically just finding out that for like a week and a half, I had a diet very rich in listeria.
Right.
Because everything that it spit out, mostly Mama Michelina's meals, was stuff that we had consumed before we even knew.
Right.
And it's like, oh. Well, that explains many things.
But what gets me even more so is they have my phone number. They have my app. They have your email address. They have your phone number. They could have done a push app notification.
I think that's probably going to be the next phase. I think the bigger problem right now is really trying to tie all that together.
Right.
That we're still, and it may have something to do with how they're handling data.
Right.
And I don't know. That's a lot of conjecture. I think it's literally they just haven't developed that far.
Right. And I get that.
But I think that's going to be a future.
When the last time I bought cola was. And that, do you want to pick up another 12-pack? You bought this 5 days ago.
Well, but that can actually be a different incentive to do things. Because what you're talking about is an incentive for public health and wellness.
Right.
Versus in dropping that whole, well, you last bought soda and we know that you roughly should be ready to buy more, based on consumption trends and all this. So let's remind you to add that to your list. And oh, look, here's a little discount. Or we've got a promotion. Those are all efforts of sales increase.
Right.
So they're looking for ways to get you into the store, spending money on things that they already know you buy, but you may have not put on your list, may not, that ultimately, don't forget that you need this. Right. Instead of relying on you seeing the special, seeing the deal, or just frankly remembering to put it on your list.
Exactly. And it's insane. It really is insane. It drives me crazy when I look at it. But at the same time, the other thing that gets me is, okay, when we ran a restaurant, everything had to be checked. Our water quality, is there dust over the door frame? Everything was checked.
Mm-hmm.
They're not checking the water that's being watered to the vegetables, that it isn't coming out of a feed stall.
Fundamentally, you're talking about two different forms of health and safety.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're like what you're talking about is more about commercial food establishments that sell prepared food,
Right.
and doing health inspections.
Right.
What this fundamentally starts dealing with is not that.
Right.
Like if you try to call up, your local health inspector,
Mm-hmm.
they go wrong department.
I know. But it should be the
Because
same
it's
department.
But it isn't.
I know.
It's because fundamentally this is about agriculture. So you're talking about USDA.
Right.
So now you have to not only contend with this is a whole federal agency that's controlling everyone.
Right.
But you're also dealing with the fact these are massive companies.
Yeah. Insanely.
In which, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're, it's no longer going over to Bragg's and picking up a bushel of corn, and it gets into so much more complication and even more insanity. And unfortunately, we can't do that.
Well, but here's the thing, though. It's almost like a weird scale of balance.
Yeah.
On the one hand, when events occur, they are massive and it can be horrific.
Right.
On the other hand, it also, when it works, when things aren't going wrong, it's actually one of the healthiest systems that there is, because when it runs correctly, when there are not problems, you actually have healthier, safetier food because you're not relying on as many people to get it right.
Right.
So it's kind of a weird moment there of like if you have more hands and more companies, then you do kind of have this small scale, more frequent likelihood of getting sick.
Right.
When you work within this massive corporate mega machine of produce and meat, you have lower likelihoods of large scale events.
Right.
That potentially can actually, in some circumstances, get stopped before they could get horrific.
True.
Because there is more understanding and more contact between the food supplier and the businesses they're supplying, and a greater integration of that data. Again, you're not going to your local produce stand and picking up a couple bushels of corn or onions or whatever. You're actually ordering this from a company. They have a receipt. They can track where it came from, when they got it, when it went out, and very specifically target who they contact and be like, stop.
Right.
Take whatever you got off the shelf, trash it. And a higher likelihood that food has not yet been served.
Right.
In some instances. It doesn't always work. These are two events where it unfortunately got all the way out to consumers.
Right.
Before anyone knew there was a problem and they needed to jerk backwards.
Right. But also, our pets started doing weird stuff. And what I mean by that is we have long held the belief, if you start an animal on a certain food, you keep them on that food. Ours stopped.
It is their diet.
Ours stopped.
Yeah. Which was weird because both the cat and the dog went through similar issues roughly the same time.
Yeah.
And we're not even sure that there was an actual problem, but they both just absolutely turned their nose up at what they had traditionally been eating and liking.
Right.
And all of a sudden, nope, not interested. So yeah, we did have to go on an exploration of like, all right, let's try something different from a different company and see if that works out.
Right.
And it did.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Purina, we're not happy with you. Friskies, we're not happy with you either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Purina or Pedigree?
Pedigree. I'm sorry. We
Yeah.
switched to Purina.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I was like, no, I think that goes the other way.
Yeah.
But again, it does happen.
Yeah.
I appreciate that our and we're not even sure that's what's happened. It's something is different.
Right. But
something changed.
Yes.
Whether that's some kind of a contaminant or just they switched in some ingredients and both companies did it about the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And we may never.
Right.
But it can happen.
Right.
So kind of like listen to your pets. If they stop eating their food, it doesn't necessarily mean they're sick or they've been exposed or contaminated, but this may be a really good time to like, okay, hi.
Yeah.
Let's try something different. Like this has been going on for a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try something different.
Right.
And then let that slide for a while.
Right.
Don't necessarily go rushing back to what you were previously buying.
Well, I just super Googled, and yeah, both their foods were included in the recall. Okay.
Really?
Really?
Nice. On one, sorry, I say that on a technical level. I don't wish illness on our pets, nor do I. Yeah, that's not it. My nice reaction is that it kind of jives together with something I'd already said when I was talking about the listeria.
Right.
Because I was getting horrified by comments.
Right.
In which people, because this ended up, so my home county where I went to school at in the state of West Virginia, 2 schools in that county.
Right.
So I have the local news for that area, received listeria contaminated meat.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I don't know which storm it was that went through. I think it was the one before Helena. And I can't remember which one that was. But anyway, a storm went through. They were mildly affected in the sense that they lost power to food storage, and that meat had already been destroyed.
Right.
Without a student ever eating it.
Right.
So that was fortunate. But the people replying to that article about like, these schools were involved and blah, 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 were just like seemingly like in every single comment were seemingly so messed up at the idea that a $2.75 to $3, cost school lunch, like what you would pay if you're paying cash, is not farm to table.
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, do y'all really not understand how this works?
Yeah.
Like, do you not know what you're eating and where it comes from and how it gets there? And like, do you understand that if they were to farm to table, which means you're working with local farmers for local meat and local vegetables, that are free range and organic and all these things, that if you went farm to table for the school lunch program, you might, and I say this as I guess, you could manage a school lunch for $15.
Yeah.
Might.
Yeah.
Like I could conceive of it being possible based on the portion sizes for children.
Right.
You might manage a school lunch at $15.
Right. The problem here, however, pay attention. I'm normally a bargain shopper. Now is not the time to go bargain shopping your pet food at Big Lots or at Aldi's. or
Yeah,
at
that was an
hours.
unfortunate experience we had previously.
Yeah.
Was that there are instances, and unfortunately our pets ended up being involved, in which companies end up dumping this product into secondary outlets.
Right.
So all of your little, like discount stores absorbed a good chunk of in a previous and that was, I think, around vitamin A, vitamin D,
Vitamin B.
Okay, vitamin B.
Yeah.
It was an issue with the vitamin B content in the food.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of like recalling this and destroying it, somewhere along the way, it was considered okay to just dump it into discount chains.
Right.
And continue selling it at a discounted rate without alerting consumers what they were actually buying.
Right.
Which I'm sorry, I just think the companies that allowed this to occur are pure evil.
Right.
For allowing that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not that I necessarily am bothered by the idea that you would pull this off shelves and then continue to sell it. It's that you needed to warn consumers what the fuck you were doing.
Right.
And that you need to supplement this food. You need to and give them an idea that you're creating a health problem for your pet.
Yeah, because what happened was it was sold on auction. So this is when I learned a lot about retail.
Mm-hmm. And it's wild now. It's absolutely crazy.
Right. What secondary and third dairy markets are, and what actually fourth dairy markets, which is where I think they wanted this to go, but it didn't make it there. Either that or Big Lots is buying on fourth dairy markets, and you don't want that. What they expected was this would go into like cattle feed, pig feed, that type of thing, which it would have been fine for them. Instead, it went into secondary markets, and it would have been fine for cattle feed or pig feed because they get other feeds.
Well, yeah. And here's the thing, and it is wild what cattle eat.
Right.
It's wild. I read an article a while back, and I cannot remember the fucking candy. And literally all the manufacturing defects got dumped into chicken feed. And I'm sitting there going, wait, what?
Yeah.
It wasn't nerds, but it was something like literally every broken piece of the candy.
Right.
And I remember envisioning it like nerds. But all the malformed candy got dumped into chicken feed. And I was just like, huh? What are chickens eating? I thought that was grain. What do you mean they're eating candy?
Right.
And then it's like, oh, well, now I understand these ginorma chickens that we've been buying for the last but no, this is what we're doing. It's not just what we're doing with our human food consumption.
Right.
It's also what we're doing with the entire food marketplace. It is some really you don't realize it. You're not necessarily that the stores exist. You don't think about how they operate and how this works and how this can occur.
It's really interesting you bring this up during this time of year.
Oh.
Candy corn.
Oh, is it candy corn?
Yep, it is marketed as chicken feed, and is primarily fed to chickens and pigs.
There you go. No, I remember reading that article and just being dumbfounded by the idea these animals are eating candy.
Yep.
And just like, are you what?
Yeah.
Like, I missed that lesson in school.
Yeah.
Like, am I just too old to have gotten that lesson that, oh no, we don't feed them just grain and millet and whatever, you know.
Right.
No. If you're a commercial chicken farm, you feed them all kinds of things that are nowhere near the idea of what you like. You know, old McDonald had a farm. It's nowhere near this concept.
Right.
It is a whole different ballgame. And it was like, what? But no, even when you start getting into like secondary markets, and technically they would be tertiary markets and quaternary markets,
right?
Because and that has more to do with the reason I know that it has more to do with debt collections than anything else. But no, secondary markets are typically your discount retail chains.
Right.
That buy like one-offs and imperfections and liquidations of product that didn't sell, that no one was interested in. It was the wrong fashion.
Right.
Tertiary markets are kind of, when it fails at Big Lots, there's still a market.
Yeah.
And typically it moves it out of the country when that occurs.
Right.
And so like it shows up in discount bins at it's sort of like whatever the Mexican equivalent of a Big Lots is.
Yeah.
Gets a tertiary. A quaternary market is usually where it starts getting reused in like insulation, if it's fabric and materials, gets turned into insulation, it gets turned into feed, it becomes parts of other products.
Right.
Like it gets ground up and mixed in and becomes something else.
Right.
So yeah, it's like that whole distribution concept is so weird. Because again, we don't really talk about it. We know that some of these things exist, at least as far as like, well, you know, Big Lots or outlet malls or outlet stores, or, you know, we understand a little bit of how that occurs. And they normally focus on the things like, oh, it's a liquidation, you know, oh, the product didn't sell. They don't really talk about, you know, the imperfections as much, though some stores do kind of highlight these are the irregulars.
Right.
But they don't really talk about like some of this is because the manufacturing process blew up on this. It didn't come out right.
Right.
This is an imperfect product, not in the sense that, well, we sewed a button wrong or we, you know, did something silly. It's literally this product is damaged and not suitable for full retail.
Right.
Like we dyed it improperly.
Right.
And it destroyed the fabric. Like it's only good for a few wears and it's going to blow up.
Exactly. All right. So here's the pet recalls. Blue Buffalo. Heals Pet Nutrition. Nutro. Pedigree. Purina.
Okay.
Not ours.
Okay.
This is the bag treats. Diamond Pet Foods. Imes. And Nature's Balance. And Eureka. And Wellness.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So do not buy them on clearance. Do not buy them from secondary and tertiary and all those retailers. And I'm going to say it. be checking, and if your pet is not responding to a food, change it.
Yeah, very seriously.
Right.
Yeah, some of those are not cheaper brands, and a lot of them sell themselves as being superior.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality, and sometimes that's true in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's literally like you have one common ingredient.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's one thing that goes into this,
right,
that is universal.
Right.
And therein lies the crux of, like, it doesn't matter at that point
Mm-hmm.
that in a way that they're all kind of superior on that item, because it's fundamentally the same item,
Mm-hmm.
just different variants of it,
Right.
that you would sell to restaurants, that you would sell to schools, that you would sell to a company that makes TV dinners, that you would sell to, a variant
Mm-hmm.
of this product, because it's all chicken.
Yeah. Or chicken.
It doesn't matter.
Or chicken,
Yeah. It doesn't matter what class of the product you buy.
Mm-hmm.
It's all from the same chicken.
Right.
Like the fact that you're picking up leg meat or marrow or bone or skin or the premium breast doesn't matter.
Right.
It's all affected.
Right. All right. So if you have Cash App, pay attention to this. If you had Cash App accounts for over the past 6 years or so, you may be available to claim thousands of dollars resulting from a class action lawsuit. The company provided $15 million in settlement earlier this year following 2 security indiscretions. And if you're able to make a claim, you only have a few weeks to do so. The first was related to take place in December 2021, where, according to Cash App, a former employee downloaded reports containing information of more than 8 million users. This included their name, their brokerage account number, and in some cases, the holdings and value of investment portfolio. The second one is another data breach that seems like what occurred was that someone got access to the holdings accounts.
Yeah. And it looks like in both Cash App and Block have denied any wrongdoing.
Of course, that's how they got the settlement agreement.
Yeah. I hate that's our de facto on settlement agreements.
Right.
Is that we didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
But we'll agree to pay this because you could potentially,
right.
Successfully convince someone that we might.
Right.
Yeah. And it's
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, now here's where this gets a little clickbait.
Mm-hmm.
You may be eligible to make a claim if you had a Cash App account between August 23rd, 2018 and August 20th of this year. The settlement will cover up to $2,500 of out-of-pocket costs stemming from the breaches, as well as up to 3 hours worth of lost time at $25 per hour. Those who have sustained a monetary loss and haven't been reimbursed can file a claim for that too. So fundamentally, I think this is going to be one of those settlements that most likely the most you're getting is the 75.
Yeah, if that.
Unless you actually had notable losses. So just having an account is kind of a misnomer here.
Right.
You can claim that 75.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Right.
It may only end up being like 25. I'm sure if there's. Well, I'm just curious. What is I'm hitting the settlement site now. Oh yeah, and let's see. If you didn't receive a personalized notice in the mail, you have to give them all their things to prove who you are. All right. So you can get costs associated with credit monitoring, professional fees, including attorneys and accountants' fees, costs associated with requesting a credit report or freezing and unfreezing credit, costs associated with canceling a payment card and or obtaining a replacement card, costs associated with closing a bank account or opening a new bank account, unrefunded overdraft and or overdraft protection fees, unrefunded late and or missed payment fees or charges, miscellaneous expenses such as notary data charges, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can do a claim for lost time, a claim for reimbursement for transaction losses payment, and you can get that as a prepaid MasterCard through Venmo, through direct deposit, or through Zelle. And yeah. So I'd say most people are going to end up kind of struggling to claim anything on this.
Right.
Is fundamentally, I think, where it ends up.
Right. But
and I hate the fact that so many of these get kind of clickbaity articles out of them.
Well, that too, but at the same time, it's like, well, example. I've had a couple credit card processors over the years.
Which, by the way, there's a whole thing against Visa right now.
There is. I've gotten 3 letters on it. The problem is it doesn't apply to me.
Okay.
It's literally the Visa letters and like I just started taking Visa like in 24.
Oh no, that may not be the same one.
Yeah.
There's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now there's another one involving Visa where there is a class action lawsuit and settlement proposal for ATM surcharge fees. For any time you've been you've been charged like a $2 fee or whatever,
right,
$5 fee for pulling money out on a Visa network card, because the claim was that Visa, which they have signed an agreement to, that they didn't do anything wrong, but that those fees were kept artificially high.
Right.
Yeah. Brenda, actually, it's not about saying that they don't trust their own app, which, by the way, hi, Brenda. Yeah, Cash App is going to use Venmo to send you money. The reality is it becomes a eat your own dog food moment. And it kind of becomes a problem when you say there's a problem with the dog food to force someone to eat your dog food that you're already in a settlement about because it was contaminated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of a like forcing someone back into Cash App to give them money for a settlement because of a problem in Cash App. You're not going to see that settlement happen. It would be the same for PayPal. You would be more likely to get your settlement money through Cash App than for PayPal to be anywhere as an option.
Right.
Weird and insane as that sounds.
Right. It's a self-interesting thing because they actually make money when they send money in their app to themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it actually becomes a problem in the settlement to do that.
Yeah.
It's easier to just be like, we're not going to use ourselves.
Yeah.
We're not going to use ourselves. There's no lawyer that would back using your own payment platform.
Right.
Because it's very self-dealing.
Exactly. All right. So we talked about this story when it was first discussed about doing it, and Apple has done it.
All right. So a new iMessage safety feature prompts kids to report explicit images to Apple. When children receive images or videos that might have nudity, they'll get a prompt to notify an adult or Apple directly. So Apple is adding a new child safety feature that lets kids send a report to Apple when they are sent photos or videos with nudity, according to The Guardian. After reviewing anything received, the company can report messages to law enforcement. The new feature expands on Apple's communication safety feature, which uses on-device scanning to detect nudity in photos or videos received via messages, AirDrop, or contact poster, and blur them out. In addition to blurring the photos or video, Apple also shows a pop-up with options to message an adult, get resources for help, or block the contact. As part of this new feature, which is in testing now in Australia with iOS 18.2, users will be able to send a report to Apple about any images or videos with nudity. The device will prepare a report containing the images or video, as well as messages sent immediately before and after the image or video, The Guardian says. It will include the contact information from both accounts, and users can fill out a form describing what happened. From there, Apple will look at the report, and it can choose to take action such as stopping a user from sending iMessages or reporting to law enforcement. Earlier this week, Google announced an expansion of on-device scanning of text messages in its Android app that will include an optional sensitive content warning that blurs images with nudity, as well as offering help finding resources and options. Once it rolls out, the feature will be enabled by default for users under 18. The Guardian says that Apple plans to make the new feature available globally, but didn't specify when that might happen. Apple didn't immediately reply to a request for comment. So in 2021, they had announced they would be scanning a user's iCloud Photos library for child sexual abuse material and would alert parents when their kids sent or received sexually explicit photos. All right. So here's the thing. I'm wondering if this is going to require that all, much like they're saying that Google will be, if Apple's version will only include minors, as in any user on the phone under the age of 18, or if this is just going to apply globally to the phone. Like, it's just enabled. I would hope that it only applies to minors. But I do worry how many people may inadvertently get caught up in this effort by someone choosing to be malicious.
Right.
Like literally setting up a phone as a child, as an under 18 account.
Right.
And then maliciously using the feature to report people.
Well, the number of times I see girlfriends going, well, he turned off his location on Find My Device. This is going to get misused a lot.
Potentially. Yeah. Well, and then also in that same vein are the number and the issue it has become for cellular carriers.
Yeah.
May I mention? Of people trying to use their cellular provider to get location information, claiming an emergency situation that may not exist or does not exist, solely to, well, he turned off his location. He's not sharing his location. But we haven't seen him in a couple of days, and we're just worried and concerned, and we and trying to scam their provider into giving up data they're not supposed to.
Right.
It has become such a problem that most providers, and I dare say all providers now, literally assume you're trying to scam this data out of them.
Right.
So where's your warrant?
Exactly.
If you legitimately have a concern about a missing person, where's my warrant?
Right.
Where's my authorization from a court of law to obtain these records?
See, but I don't see that being applied here.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I'm saying is that, at what level do we need Big Brother controlling crap?
Fair enough. What I also worry about is very much the same thing as Facebook content moderators. Because, of course, in Facebook, you can report content, especially for things like nudity and violence, and there's a whole list.
Sharing feedback.
Yeah. Well, but here's the whole thing, is that you can report it, and there's a real live human that has to actually review this. And one of the biggest problems that Meta, Facebook, has had is with the extreme mental anguish and burnout that these employees go through, being continuously subjected to the content that they are subjected to. That being continuously inundated with child predators and explicit images of them and explicit conversations from an adult to a minor, and the awareness this is what this is, or at least potentially is what this is very hard. Like, no one gets paid enough for that. Like, let's just all agree, it doesn't matter how many zeros are in that paycheck, it's not enough. But it is very mentally traumatizing. And so it's in a lot of situations, not, and it wasn't in Facebook's Meta's case, trying to figure out how to, and then one, maintain an employment workforce to do this, and two, how to support them while they work, so that you don't basically create broken employees who have been so traumatized that literally it's from working as any normal adult at Meta, at Facebook, literally being a pipeline to a PTSD disability. That's the realities of when we do this. This is like constantly being on a jury of one rape, one assault, one whatever, after another, with all the skills and abilities you would find in any 12 random people for a jury. Which typically are not going to cover how to handle this, how to work with this, how to deal with this. It is a serious issue when we start moderating content.
Well, it does, and then you have people that report stuff that has nothing to do with it.
There will be people who use it abusively. I don't care what the feature is. There's someone who's going to use it abusively. There's if I've learned anything in IT, whatever you give a user, someone will find a way to use this inappropriately. In ways you never considered, in ways you never thought of, in ways that are in and of itself horrifying. And they will do it.
All right.
Yes.
So some airports had to adjust some drastic X-ray machines, apparently, because they were horrified for what they were going to actually see.
All right. So, yeah, airport. Let's see. This comes to us from Unilad. So airports forced to make drastic changes to X-ray machines after horror over what they were able to actually see. The Transportation Security Administration, TSA, tried to get the issue fixed, but ended up having to scrap the scanners completely. So U.S. airports were forced to change the security scanners they used after it was revealed just how much the X-rays showed up. If you find it easy to walk through airport security and not crap yourself, panicking someone has suddenly planted a bomb on you or some sort of drugs or illegal weapon, then congratulations. No, just me. It's the worst part of any holiday, and the only thing which makes it worth it is the pina colada you know will be waiting for you on the beach at the other end. And while the scanners in the US may not pick up on your trembling fear, it turns out they used to be able to pick up on a hell of a lot more than you probably realize, so much so they had to be drastically changed. Prior to the change made in 2013, TSA used body scanners made by OSI Systems Rapid Scan Division to assess passengers making their way through the airport. The scanners were introduced after a failed terrorist attempt in 2009 that revolved around bomb parts hidden in someone's underwear and offered a full-body infrared image for security agents to look at. It might sound like a pretty normal process, but in reality, it meant security agents could effectively see you completely nude. Needless to say, that's not the relaxing start to a vacation people would be looking for. The scanners sparked controversy and prompted TSA to ask RapidScan to develop a new software that would correct the problems. However, RapidScan informed TSA that it would not be able to meet the June 2013 deadline it had set. As a result, TSA announced that it would no longer use the scanners. So, yeah, this is looking like a little bit of an older story.
You know, it leads into...
Okay.
Okay.
Go for the lead-in.
So, they replaced the scanners. Then they done an update. Then they got new scanners. The new scanners done an update. The new scanners
are even better.
Cancer.
Good God.
Was showing implants, medical devices, everything in the human body, and toys. Anything like they were getting better images than our local hospitals were. From the original to the update.
Yeah. And this is part of the whole deal is that the irony is, and it's kind of like a weird irony here, is that in terms of diagnostic imaging,
right?
X-rays have been very powerful since the beginning. It's why they took hold in the medical community. The problem being, while it can be a very useful tool,
right,
for what they wanted to use it for, I don't think anyone that ever heard the words thought, wait a minute, if I can stand fully dressed in my doctor's office with a portable X-ray by GE and get a full scan, why would you want me to believe or think that you were going to somehow do a lesser version?
Yeah, this is a comparison. This is what the software they bought showed. Looks very average, very normal.
Yeah, it kind of blurred things out. And then
they ran the update a couple weeks ago.
Very detailed.
Very detailed. Like you could see the lunch.
So what they've most likely been doing this whole time, my hazard guess, was that before this update and what this update took away, was a lot of contrast being thrown over the image. That because what this looks like, if you compare the two, is literally the same thing, but you pulled the brightness up, or more importantly, allowed the brightness to be what it ought to be, not what you were telling the software to previously do, which was shade the image heavily and kind of focus on some areas. Yeah. Yeah, because literally, if you look at it, it just looks like a change in contrast.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Some of the comments are hilarious. I wonder if I could get a CD of these copies to show my doctor.
You know?
If they want to see all the metal in me, because this person has apparently had a lot of physical surgery, it would be great if I could get copies of that.
I mean, you know, and do you get an alert from TSA that you need to see your doctor about your lung cancer? More importantly, how would you even start the conversation?
Right.
Like, does anyone in our audience think TSA is who you want to hear? You might want to see your doctor.
Right.
That firmly believes TSA is the appropriate people to deliver the message. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to throw off on TSA. It's a very hard job, and I get that.
Right.
And that being, you know, a gentle, meek, mild soul is a horrible job for you.
Right.
Like you have to be very, you know, commanding to do this job appropriately, and I get that. Like you have to command respect and authority.
Right.
Do you really want TSA to be the one to tell you you need to see your doctor? You might have a medical condition.
Right.
Yeah, TSA alert, please make a doctor's appointment ASAP.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, with the number of people traveling for leisure, talk about a shitty vacation if the first thing you do when you land is find the local hospital and demand medical testing because TSA started your vacation. At least your vacation travel with, it's very important you see a doctor.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would appreciate that. I do think it poses a likelihood you might find things faster than most people see their physicians.
Right.
Especially when you think about the number of business travelers that go through these scanners probably and then only see their doctor, especially men who historically see their doctor at unbelievably low rates.
Right.
But you know, may be getting weekly scans.
Right.
Twice weekly scans.
What gets me, and it kind of tickled me thinking about this, and it's funny now. It wasn't funny then. But I should have just sent you to San Francisco and back because you would have had to go through Cincinnati. We could just gotten copies of it and sent it to Dr. Anal Linkage.
Well, yes. But again, I don't think TSA is in the habit of being like, it's not like you're going to Splash Mountain. You know, you don't come out the end like you do on Splash Mountain and there's the giant wall of monitors and it's like, would you like to buy your photo? I don't think TSA is in the habit, nor even probably has the capability to be like, here you go.
Well, you know, since they are running at a deficit, meaning that they do not actually produce or save us money, why not sell it to you?
I mean, hell, we damn near got the United States Postal Service to the point of having bake sales. It'd be nice to see TSA. I'm sorry, this is all very tongue-in-cheek, and it's probably horribly inappropriate for people who go through this and have potentially been alerted that they have a medical condition. So I don't necessarily want to make fun of people that that's happened to. It's just trying to imagine a world in which you can literally walk through an airport security scanner and it can double as the better part of an annual physical.
I could see that. Like, I think that would be great.
I think it's Orwellian to a degree that just it hurts.
Yeah, I know, right? All right, so now we begin the insanity this Sunday because everyone can't get their clock on the same clock.
So daylight savings time 2024. Don't forget to turn your clocks back on November 3rd at 2 a.m.
That's if you're in the U.S.
It's in the U.S. In the U.S.
Yes.
Yeah.
UK and GTM 1 through 5, you will be turning them back this Sunday.
There you go.
Yep.
So yeah. So y'all get to do the lovely exchange, I take it, with Hazel and Metaphysics Today of when is the show?
Yeah, we will have to do that on the 28th, but not the 4th. I get to sleep in on the 4th as I adjust my internal clock, which has already started its mess.
Oh yes. So do we even want to get into, should we still have time change? Why do we still have time change in the world? Why can't we just let it go?
But then are we going to be able to save our candles?
I know, right? I know it's a massive concern for a family budget.
I know.
Like the amount I spend on candle lighting.
Mm-hmm.
Would someone think of the bees?
Well, you know,
would someone think of the bees?
I know, right? And the baby fat. But anyhow.
Yes. But it's the reality. It's kind of become a snowball.
Mm-hmm.
That like stopping it would almost require a world agreement that this is a bad idea. Let's stop.
Yeah.
I think it's almost to a point the UN would have to weigh in on this and be like, look, we're done. Well, the world is done.
I would love it if the world would be set to one universal time. Don't care what it is. It's one universal time.
Oh, God. I think you could switch us to kilometers and switch sides of the road in the U.S. easier than you could put the world on a universal time.
Then I could drive faster.
Oh. I mean, sincerely, I think you would have a better hope.
I know.
Especially since like we do very much associate like time of day with portion of day.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're on a universal time, like all around the world, I think you start to lose the idea of the effect of time zones and the understanding that gets communicated of, you know, if it's 2,300 hours everywhere in the world,
right?
Somewhere that's going to be morning, somewhere that's going to be night, and really processing the idea
that it's 2 a.m.
Well, but what you're saying is one universal time, that it just on Earth is 2,300 hours.
Right.
No matter where you are, from, you know, Washington, D.C. to, you know, Japan to Germany to wherever.
Right.
It's 2,300 hours. Really loses the time zone connection of what portion of the day is that.
Exactly.
You know, is that the middle of the night? Is that mid-morning? How, like, what's the difference? Like, you know, and in some instances, it may not be all that important. But even in the U.S., and I've gone through this with one of our clients, may I point out, because we have one client who is way over in Mountain. And is not very happy if I start my day at say 8 a.m. by sending them anything ever for any reason by text message. Because they're like, do you know what time it is?
Well, it's like right now, it is 2:09 a.m. in Miss Hazel's time zone.
Mm-hmm.
I think she'd get mad if I called her.
Yes, it is the time zones I get.
Right.
Time zones I get. I do get time zones. I do hate the micro time zones.
Mm-hmm.
Like where it's like a city decides to be a half hour different.
Right.
Like that gets annoying, let me tell you. Used to have to deal with a vendor that was in Indianapolis, Indiana, or excuse me, Muncie, Indiana. And that is one of those weirdo micro time zones
Mm-hmm.
that you have to remember that they're a half hour different,
Mm-hmm.
except when they're not.
Right.
So trying to figure out, is there support open
Uh-huh.
as you come into the office and our database is failing,
Mm-hmm.
is not really something that adds to your morning in any positive way. Or more importantly, calling them and getting the, we're sorry, our offices are closed from blah, blah, blah to blah, blah, blah. Please call back between the hours of...
Right. But no, if we went to universal time, we do not do this damn time change. It is the same GTM, which is global marginal time. We're done.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to work at 2 a.m., you go to work at 2 a.m. across the planet. No more of this, okay, you're 5 hours ahead, you're 6 hours behind, and you're down there, you're a day and a half behind. How's 1 o'clock sound?
In the morning or the afternoon?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. I understand the problem, and it is very difficult sometimes to coordinate meetings and time zones, especially as you get more polarity.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes even as you get really close.
Right.
Like mornings are bad, evenings are worse. Depending.
Right.
But no, I don't think we'll see a universal time for Earth.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we might one day see kill the time zones. Just not kill the time zones, sorry, kill daylight savings time.
Well, I can do that for you.
No.
We can move to Arizona or Hawaii. I vote Hawaii, but I'm open to Arizona.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think we go with a long distance relationship. I moved to Canada, somewhere around Montreal, and you go bake in the sun.
I can do that 6 months out of the year. Well, actually 8 months out of the year there.
Go join your lizard people.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
All right, now let's find out if you're the asshole.
Alrighty, am I the asshole for assuming I was invited to my cousin's wedding and making a scene when I found out I wasn't? My 18 female cousin's 22 female wedding was this weekend. I'll call her Mary. Growing up, we were pretty close as me and my siblings, 20 female and 23 male, often went to Mary's house. Lately, we haven't seen each other much because all of them moved away for college, but it's still nice to see each other at family events. A year and a half ago, she met her now husband. Oh, excuse me. He was invited to Christmas, Easter, and every family event since then. When he was there, I noticed that Mary was a lot more distant than usual and barely talked to me, but talked with my siblings all night. I figured it was probably just because of our age difference. They're about 4 years apart. A few months ago, we got an invitation to their wedding in the mail. Or at least my parents did. My name wasn't mentioned on the invitation, which was addressed to our last names. So like the Arringtons. But since I still live with my parents, and my brother and sister both got one, I assumed I was included, and so did my parents. But Mary's face dropped when she saw me. She pretended to smile, but I could see something was bothering her. The wedding went on, but during the cocktail, Mary came up to me and asked me why I came, since she didn't send me an invitation. I was taken aback a bit, but told her that we assumed I was included and asked her why she didn't invite me. She avoided the question, but after insisting a bit, she told me that she wanted her husband's family to have a good impression of her family and didn't want them to know that her cousin was a lesbian because she wanted to have a normal family. For context, our family is pretty open-minded and all of them accept me, but her husband and his family are a lot more traditional and conservative. What I don't understand is I don't look gay, whatever that means, and they would have never known unless someone told them. I was so shocked. I told her that she was sick for caring about impressing a bunch of bigots more than her own cousin. She got mad at me and we both got a bit loud, which attracted attention. People came to find out what was happening. When they found out, my parents said that she was being mean and shouldn't have made a big deal about this. A bunch of other people said that it was wrong of me to come when I wasn't invited. Mary started telling me to leave, so I stormed off. Since I've been receiving texts from her and her parents saying that I was a bitch for coming, making a scene, and ruining her big day. I understand that it's her wedding and she can invite whoever she wants, but her words were so hurtful, and I genuinely thought I was invited. But I know it's wrong that I caused such a scene on her wedding day. Maybe I should have just left and not said anything. Am I the asshole? Ooh, you're struggling with this one.
Someone better get me the vinegar.
Oh, it's a dill pickle?
Yes, it's a dill pickle, and here's why.
Okay, take it away. I think we're going to disagree, but go ahead.
Okay, it's a dill pickle because of the way the invitation was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's easy to misread. There should have been like an RSVP that said how many dinners were needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get why Mary didn't see 3 and go, let me
wait,
pick
what?
Up the phone.
Yeah, let me call someone.
Yeah. Or
who are they bringing?
Yeah, who are you bringing? No, this is for the senior members of the family. Mm-hmm. That would have been a nice way to handle it. However, Mary, on the other hand, was a bitch at the reception.
Mm-hmm. Like, okay. So here's my thing. I'm not the asshole.
Okay.
And here's why. There's a few reasons, actually.
Mm-hmm.
One, you were taking on the idea that you didn't want someone at a wedding, but you didn't have the fortitude to actually tell them that.
Right.
You sent an ambiguous invitation to a family, not just to your aunt and uncle, I'm assuming. I'm assuming that's how that relationship works. But, to your cousin's parents, it wasn't clear in that invitation that it was just for the parents.
Right.
Which you could have easily accomplished by only addressing it to them specifically by name.
Right.
Or even Mrs. and Mr. and Mrs. would have more accurately portrayed that. Mm-hmm. You sent it to the family.
Mm-hmm.
That was a mistake.
Right.
I assume, like you do, that there was an RSVP portion of this invitation.
Right.
I also have to assume that, like most people, if you go to a wedding, you return that.
Right.
Specifying how many people would attend.
Right.
And perhaps even who.
Right.
Because in some instances, those RSVPs will ask you to name who.
and choose which meal option.
Yeah, because you do end up having to, in some way, indicate who the hell this RSVP is from.
Right.
So you got an RSVP from a family, I'm assuming, that had a marking of 3 adults.
Right.
All right. Meanwhile,
right.
You get to your wedding.
Right.
And you see your cousin and go, oh, God, this is exactly what I didn't want.
Right.
You chose in that moment, during the wedding, this has already occurred. She's already here early.
Right.
You didn't catch her at the door. You called her well into the event.
Right.
That your unwanted guest was here.
Right.
You decided to approach her.
Right.
And be belligerent.
Right.
At what point did you think or assume the reaction to that was going to be, I'm so sorry. I'll leave now quietly.
Mm-hmm.
Are you stupid?
Right.
Are you stupid?
Right.
No. Most people who belligerently get asked anywhere, what are you doing here? I didn't invite you.
Mm-hmm.
Are probably going to have a pretty heated response to that. Right. You created your own scene,
right,
Bridezilla.
Mm-hmm.
And now you want to blame OP for it.
Mm-hmm.
That they should have known.
Right.
Okay, that's all predicated on the problem you have. Like, for anyone in the back who didn't hear it, this is all predicated on the belief system that something is wrong with LGBTQ people, and they should automatically know that.
Right.
And that apropos of nothing that you have done to clearly articulate your problem with them, should immediately feel guilty for ruining your event for existing.
Yeah.
Excuse me, what? You are not the asshole, OP.
No.
I'm so sorry your cousin is poor dick gone to this level of bigotry and decided to treat a family member so hostilely and so clearly adopted their in-laws' hatred of you for existing. And then she feels like entitlement, may we point out, to get an apology for you existing.
Right.
And having the audacity to not somehow magically receive the message, because apparently we're all telepaths. Like, we're horrible, monstrous human beings, but apparently we're telepathically gifted, that we should know our place in the sense of what this cousin expected is ridiculous. So no, you're not the asshole. You're not the asshole. She literally did everything wrong to prevent herself from getting what she explicitly wanted.
Yeah.
And then got mad at you because you didn't telepathically receive the message from her mothership, from the Bridezilla fart of, awesomeness, of what her special day needed from you.
Right.
No.
See,
it's...
See, and I get that point. At the same time, I'm like, didn't y'all talk? Like, wasn't there any conversation between the family of like, oh, she's vegetarian, so one vegetarian, two meat eater, two chickens. Like, I don't know. I've ran at weddings. I've, you know, officiated them. There's always an RSVP. There's always an RSVP for meals.
And if you are in the situation where you explicitly do not want a particular person or people at your wedding, you need to handle that directly. Like, do it discreetly. Not that I'm ever calling what this bride did right, but, to each their own. It is her day. She should be able to get what she wants.
Right.
Key emphasis, I'm not backing the belief system. I'm just saying it is her day. It is her wedding. If she doesn't or does want someone there, she can do that. But she needs to be as explicit as possible about what she wants.
Right. But, let's flip this into our direction for a moment. If we receive an invite from third niece down the line, whatever, and it says the Arringtons,
I hope they realize who they invited.
Yeah, they invited you.
Well, but more importantly, you address that to the Arringtons. That assumes my household.
Right.
Unless you explicitly say no one under 19.
Right.
Again, kind of going into this theory that, like, we have a child that is 18. Unless you explicitly say no children under 19.
Right.
I'm going to assume you invited my household. You didn't just invite me and or give me the option of a +1, which is also very common and very anticipated. But you also didn't communicate to me that I specifically was invited and I was not allowed a +1, +3, plus whatever number. Then you invited my household. Be careful with your invitations. You addressed it to a family, not to specific people.
Because we have gotten wedding invites, and it's like, do you want to go to Alabama? Here, dear.
Yeah, no, that was one of my relatives. And it was like, I'm not going to Alabama. Like, and I don't think there was ever an expectation that I was. To get a little crass, I take it more so like their high school graduation invitation, which it's like, send money.
Yeah. But no, it was addressed to the Arringtons. And I'm like, here, honey, do you want to go to Alabama?
It's like, I'm not driving to Alabama for this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, I'm in West Virginia. I don't think there's any expectation. It was you're welcome to if you want to.
Yeah.
But I like I've been to Alabama one time. I don't know that I need a second trip to Alabama. No offense to Alabama. I'm sorry. It was not for me.
I need to go. I have 2 reasons to go to Alabama.
You've never been. What's the other one?
Mama taught.
Okay. Alabama has a redeeming feature now.
And there's another creator I watch on there. So yeah, there's at least 2 reasons to go to Alabama.
Okay. Fair enough. But at the time, I personally had 0 reason ever to return to Alabama.
Right.
Like, don't get me wrong, much like West Virginia, it is pretty, but, that's about it.
Right.
And frankly, y'all scare me the hell out of me. Like, Alabama don't have inspections, y'all. The cars on that road. Ooh. Plywood doors. I'm just saying, I saw plywood doors. Not one car singular that had a plywood driver's door. Multiple cars. It was like, feature. What in the clampets?
But that was a feature in the 60s.
No. See, this is different.
Uh-huh.
This is different. See, that was a real car door with a wood siding over it. I'm talking, your door fell off and someone just went to Lowe's and bought some plywood and a little bit of chain, and they reached from the inside to pop a lock.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, plywood door.
Okay.
The door is plywood.
Yeah. Let's hop into Polly while y'all guys vote if he's the asshole this week for attending a wedding that was addressed to a household.
Yes. So from our poly community, when do you feel secure in your relationships? How do you know that you have a secure relationship? Is it the toothbrush you leave at your partner's place? Is it the hearts and the chats? What is it for you that makes you say that you feel confident and happy to see this partner again in the future? When did you start to trust your partner truly for the first time?
You go first.
Oh. I don't know that I've ever thought about it like this, though. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't ever feel like I was checking a box where it's like, I feel secure in my relationship. And I don't think there are other definitions for it. It's like toothbrush at their place. I almost have to change the question to be able to answer it.
Okay.
Because I'm going to take this in terms of, like, when did you feel like it went from an occasional person you might hook up with to thinking of it in terms of a relationship? I think do you agree that's basically what they're asking?
That's the question. Like, they're giving bad examples, but it's the question.
I think it's when we have the serious conversation that you needed drawer space.
I have the same point, but it's a different piece of it.
Okay, go for it.
That's also when I got a second ring of keys.
Yes. Yeah, the keys were also
Yeah.
It's like, you're welcome here.
Uh-huh.
Like, don't scare the hell out of me. Like, don't intentionally try to show up and scare the bejesus out of me.
Right.
Like, I would prefer a little warning that you might be headed this way.
Yeah.
You know, like,
of course, my comment back to you on that is like, look at the Google Calendar. It's down to the hour at this point on when I will be arriving.
But in the original event.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's like, yes, you're welcome here, but I would prefer, like, maybe you try to give me a heads up. In the sense that I've been in this house, like, you know, like, for the longest time with just my grandmother. There's no one else that's had a set of keys to this house that would just walk in that can find them. Heaven help my sister. They're in her purse. They're probably still in her purse. But eternally, they're in my purse. It took a while. But even then, it's like no one has just unlocked the door and walked in forever. And, like, even saying to, like, my sister, you have a set of keys, you could have just gone on in. Like, because there was like a couple of incidents where, like, my grandmother and I were out or something. I forget what the deal was, but it's like my sister ended up sitting in the driveway. And it's like, you have a set of keys. I know, they're somewhere in my purse.
Right. But
like, it's one of those moments that, like, if you're a woman, that makes perfect sense.
Or an Aeson.
Or you know, a gay man can have that moment too. I get it. But what I mean is like in the general purse world.
Right. But there were
you get it if you get it. it doesn't make sense if it doesn't make sense, and it's hard to explain.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
but
it's a magical bag of holding. Okay, let's try to explain it for those that don't get it. Purses are a magical bag of holding that is very akin to a TARDIS in its internal dimensions. It's bigger on the inside.
Yes.
And sometimes things just fall beyond the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes things appear and disappear when they choose.
Mm-hmm.
And usually that moment is when you need it, you can't find it.
Normally when I need them and cannot find them, and then everything gets emptied out into the back of the car, so he gets unfrozen.
You need it. Yeah, and still you normally can't find it.
Yeah. But
like,
no,
and this is the magical realm of purses. It is what it is.
Yeah. There were changes that weekend. The Kia got an ashtray.
Yep. So an ashtray on your desk made you a key for the door, and we ended up and I had made the space for you in the drawer because we had talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the drawer was actually, I think, what you started with. Was I look, if I'm gonna be coming back and forth, I need somewhere to just store clothes because I'm tired of packing a bag.
Yeah.
Is ultimately where the conversation started. Right. Now that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Because I always have spare toothbrushes. Like, you're not going to spend the night with me and not get offered a toothbrush. That's just gonna happen.
Yeah, that comes with standard house stuff.
Yeah, it's a standard thing for me. Whether you leave it there and we let it set or what, or take it with you, throw it in the trash, I don't care. Yeah. I'll gladly give you another one.
Yeah, but toothbrushes are too low the grade. I got drawers, I got a set of keys, this lovely car got an ashtray, I got a desk with a chair because we went to Beverly's that weekend.
Yeah, it was a whole weekend.
Yeah, it wasn't just weekend of okay, we're moving you into a second house.
It wasn't that we were moving you in. It was accepting of the fact that, okay, this has gotten to a point that you're not just a guest.
Right.
And I'm tired of feeling like I have a dog that I have to let in and out. Yeah. Literally, that's early dating is literally, it's like you have a dog that you have to let in and out because they can't reach the doorknob.
Mm-hmm.
Or necessarily have the trainability to close the door after themselves, like Vlad. But,
Right.
It's early dating. Is you pretty much get let in and out like a dog. And at some point, it's this is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I feel fairly confident you're not going to kill me. I'm pretty sure this might last more than 5 more minutes. It is inconvenient for all parties involved.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's when you do the switch flip.
Right.
At least for, many relationships.
Right.
Now, I think the hard part, especially polyamory, is how do you tell when it's not that kind of relationship? When someone's going to be a comment, or when someone's going to be a not nesting partner, not ever do you think it's the same? Do you think a comment deserves a key?
Depending on how often the comment comes through. I mean, if it's Haley's comment that comes through every 2 years, of course not.
Okay, but I mean, where do you draw the line? And do you, again, think that it's necessary that, that's the line? That works for nesting. It works for nesting pretty well.
Right. Well, for me, now granted, I've got different levels than a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For me, it's comments never work up to the point of getting access to the Google Calendar. Like they still have to do the, hey, I'm going to be in town next week, or hey, I've got next weekend free. Are you free? Stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then like the next stage for me is boyfriend. And they get their own pinning, they get their own calendar, they have access to my calendar. There's at least an expectation of a reply to a message.
Like they're more like a moon. They come around every like month or so.
Mm-hmm.
At least
every month, sometimes every week. And then like they build up and like the relationship builds up. They get more involved. They get to have a say in, I think I'm going to pull 70 hours for the next 3 weeks.
But do they get a key?
No.
Okay, so that goes back to what I was saying. It really only applies to nesting partners. Like you either live here or we're pretty much headed in that trajectory.
Right.
But then, so how do you decide? Is it when you do the pen color? Is it when you do the calendar color? Is it like
it's more when they're here more often than my nesting partners? Like they're cooking dinner, they're cleaning house, there's discussions over, do we really want that damn pan? It burns every goddamn thing.
Okay, so when it actually starts becoming partner conversations.
Right.
Like you're not just having like normal like dating conversations, you're actually making decisions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's when it's like, okay, you got a key. Fuck, I'm tired of driving you. I'll call Rebecca on Monday.
Oh, now hold on. Before you add people to the insurance policy. Now
if they're behind the wheel.
Okay, if they're behind the wheel, then yes, we want to make sure they're insured. Okay, gotcha. Now.
Yeah.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. That's
yeah.
Like, yeah, add and then tell me. Like,
yeah.
Like, always make sure the motorist is covered before they get behind the wheel.
Yeah, you know, like that discussion. And yeah, we haven't had that in 7 years.
No, and that's kind of what I'm asking, and why I keep reiterating to it is it's still a relationship.
Yeah.
It's still a long-term relationship. It's just not a nesting partner. So when in that, you know, moon to whatever, do you actually call it more than a hookup? Like, what's the line in the sand?
The access to my calendar.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, you see them getting access to the calendar and they're told to book their own dates.
Then it's become a relationship.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. Now, I'm just curious, and that I feel is the spirit of the question.
Right. You know, and it's when they have access to me. Not unfeathered, but, you know, because nobody gets feathered access to me at work, but unfeathered access.
Yeah. No, okay. Well, and I also have to ask, because that's not really, it's not come up for me.
Uh-huh.
Like, I don't really have anyone that I feel like another role relationship.
All right. Well, he freezes again. He'll be back so I can hear the question. There you are.
No, what I was saying was it really hasn't come up for me for like moons and other planetary bodies.
Right.
Non-nesting partners, because that's not really what I'm looking for.
Right.
And so I've never had to consider, like, when would a, you know, moon become a relationship?
When you have to buy me a 10.
Okay. But I know, I'm just saying, like, I hadn't really had to consider it for myself, because it's like, I'm not really looking.
Yeah.
Like, I already have one relationship I wasn't looking for. Like, no offense. I'm not saying that in any bad way. I'm just saying, I was already at, like, I'm good single.
Yeah.
When I met him and went, oh, fuck, I'm in a relationship. Not Yeah, not in a bad way. It was
Right.
just like, I didn't imagine this occurring.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, I guess we're doing this. And it's like, okay, well, that's already one more relationship that I thought I was gonna.
Right.
Because I had like sworn off the whole, like, I'm not dating, I'm not doing, like, I would casually date,
Right.
but I wasn't doing the whole we're gonna date and then move in together. Like, that was nowhere in my mental trajectory. Like,
Right. But let's
it
clarify
was
here
gone.
on that topic. Neither was I. Like, I will be honest, I haven't been looking for a relationship in over 20 damn years.
Yeah, yours just keep happening.
Yeah, they happen.
Like,
Organically.
It's like, oops, I did it again.
It's like, damn. Well, damn. I kind of like that table. Why are we getting? Oh, okay. I like that table better. You know, it's that level of like paying attention and just letting connections happen, which I think is lost in dating now.
And I actually saw a thing, and I decided not to reply to it. I forget where it was. I think it just popped randomly on my feed, and I think it was like am I overreacting or something? I don't know. I briefly read it, and then I was like, I'm not responding to this. I don't want to get involved. Because I think it's one of those, my mindset. And it may even been a Facebook group. I don't know. It popped somewhere.
Right.
But anyway, I read it, and it was one of those, if I get into this, like, the only way I can respond is from my own mindset. And like the backload to get someone to understand that.
Right.
It's kind of like, this is not going to be worth my time.
Right.
Like, most people don't agree. Most people don't feel that way. Most people aren't ready for that. Most people don't want this conversation. But y'all are here. You're forced to listen. Like, and we've talked about it some before, is that, like, my idea is that where we screw up on dating is we kind of make it like you're a real adult when.
Right.
You finish college, and then you start looking for a relationship so that you can get married and have the kids and buy the house and and we make it very mission oriented.
Right.
And then we heavily outside influenced with who you ought to date and what you ought to be looking for. And I think a lot of people go through this phase where they find that person and don't know what to do because they don't know, like, they get in a relationship and it's not everything in a bag of chips that they thought they were going to get. Like, it's not this movie feeling of like, oh, I'm in a relationship and my life is complete now. It's this underwhelming, like, well, there's nothing wrong with them. You know what I mean? Like, they're not abusive. They're not going to cheat on me. They're, you know, and they have a good job and they make good money and they're a good provider and, you know, or whatever version of that you want to go with.
Right.
You know, it's very gender role oriented. But it doesn't spark anything. Right. It's just kind of like, I found the other shoe.
Right. Well,
to a pair of shoes I'm not really all that excited about.
Right. And, you know, for me, you know, one of my things is it feels natural. What I mean by that is it's that I don't have to think that, oh, it's Wednesday. I have to be somewhere at 7 p.m.
Where is that?
Yeah. Like, let me check my calendar.
What am I supposed to do?
Right.
You know, it's not loading the dishwasher.
Right.
But no, but I think a lot of people go through that and it gets very mission oriented, and then you get kind of locked in because you think you're the weirdo, like something's wrong with you.
Right.
Like, you have everything you're supposed to want,
and
it's as exciting as opening underwear from your grandma on Christmas.
Right. Yeah.
And then it kind of becomes, this is what you think it's supposed to be like.
Right.
And I think a lot of people get broken.
I think they get broken, but I also think they get told, I want to call bullshit, like, oh, we have to have this discussion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God, not the 17 articles.
Yeah. Or, it's been 5 dates and he's not proposed to me.
Yeah, or you have to sleep with them on the 3rd date because otherwise, and do this and do that and do this other thing and take a quiz with them because that's always a great way to make sure your relationship lasts.
All right.
I'm just saying like magazine quizzes are notoriously meant to make you single.
Right.
They will, which can sometimes be a good thing if you learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't. They just go, oh, I screwed up, and thank you, whatever magazine, you taught me this.
Right.
So now I have, no new skill or tool except for your quiz to figure out if this is the man for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I still don't understand what I'm looking for.
Right.
So, anyway.
Yeah. Okay, why is that not working? Sorry, something popped up in my mind and I wanted to go check. And all right. Never mind. Anyhow, so with that.
All right, let's go look at that. Am I the asshole?
Let's check how you're the asshole. Oh, nope, you're not the asshole.
Woohoo! I don't disagree with your dill pickle entirely.
Right.
I think it is a screwed up situation that I hate the idea of anyone making a scene at someone's wedding, but I think some bridezillas bring it on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is one that definitely created her own problem.
Right.
So it is a dill pickle in a sense, but
right.
I lean heavily
not the asshole with a touch of vinegar.
There you go.
All right.
It smells vinegary.
Yeah. All right, guys. We will see you Sunday. Well, no, tomorrow night because we have Energy Overview.
Yes.
Yes. All right, guys. Good night, y'all.
Hey, you forgot some people.
Oh, yes.
All right. So, of course, we want to thank Beverly Walker, Mika G, Brenda, Joan Owen, Shannon C, Shannon D, Lady Gwendolyn, Caitlin Bell, Devin, Bella, and Maria Meyer. If you'd like to learn more about us, the show, or how you too can become a Patreon sponsor and receive all the wonderful benefits our baristas receive, please visit us at pcsbnetwork.com.
Yes. All right, guys. Have a great night.
Night.